friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic.
I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my friend, co-host, and angriest inch,
Alex Dandino.
All right, guys, before we get to this night's set, this gig, a little business, guys. Please take a second and leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show, especially if that to be Apple Podcast app. It helps us out a lot, guys. It's a way to fight back against the repressive algorithmic overlords. Takes but a second of your time, means the world to us. For those of you who've been doing it, thank you guys so much. We do read them, and it actually helps bolster our souls. Email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, with your ideas for movies you'd like to hear covered, new, old, themes, double feature, guest host, whatever you want, we want to give it to you. Find us on all your social media so you can share the show with your friends, and that's another great way to get a hold of us. Also now, you can join the Film Alchemist Patreon account.
Yay!
So, for almost no investment at all to a lot of investment, you can help the show grow. We have a Discord server where we're always there chatting with people, growing our community. You'll have Zoom calls. You'll have the ability to choose and help us program the show. Merchandise, all kinds of awesome stuff over at our Patreon page. You can find that on any of our social media accounts in our link tree. You will be able to find us on Patreon now. Come and join the brood. All right. That's enough business. I'm very excited about the Patreon. It's been a long time coming. We have an awesome community here, so it's been really cool to get a chat with people more personally. So keep on coming, guys. Keep inviting your friends. All right. That's enough of the business. It's time for our gig. Tonight we will be covering Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Alex, I gotta say, this month has been spectacularly awesome. Hedwig, this might be the first month where I was like, I might legitimately on Letterboxd give two of these movies a perfect 5 out of 5. I feel like Hedwig is kind of the down and dirty, real world, two-faced dark twin of Sing Street. And it works in the exact same beautiful way, right? It's full of intimacy and rage and power. And whereas Sing Street is about the hope and optimism of young art, right? Hedwig is about when you are a person who's been left in the dust, right? When you're a broken husk and the world just keeps taking and taking and taking from you, and you say, you know what? I will craft my own narrative. And you just grab the world by the beard and say, listen up, you fuck. And no matter how idiosyncratic or weird or whatever, when you're on that fucking stage, you are screaming in the face of the world that has betrayed you. And I love that fucking essence in this film. Alex, your opening thoughts on Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
I just can't believe it took this long for us to do a musical. This is weird.
Is this our first musical?
I think so, yeah.
Wow, almost 300 episodes in, yeah.
I think it is, yeah. I mean, this is the first one this is at least the first full-blown stage-to-movie adaptation we've done. Besides that, though, like, I love this show anyways. Like, I think the show is great. We actually had a friend who did it a long time ago.
Shouts out Stevie Barickian.
Stevie Barickian!
There is probably no one on earth who loves the show more than Stevie B.
This is his
true
fucking
champion.
show, man.
Yeah.
He fucking loves Hedwig. This is like his favorite. We've had many conversations about it. But look, I agree with everything you said. Everything about Hedwig is so raw and visceral and real. And yeah, it is like this horribly downtrodden version of Sing Street. Actually, I lied. This is actually this is the after of Sing Street. This is the sequel where everyone's like, dude, this did not go our way. Like that, I mean, but this is like the IRA version. Honestly, like at the end of the day, Hedwig is just so well thought out and well plotted. And like for a movie that is essentially a musical, like it works the exact same format. There is absolutely no difference other than maybe a couple of like camera moves, but there is almost no difference between how this movie is presented and how the play is presented. So like when I see it, I view the movie as a musical itself, and God, it is just so fucking beautiful. Everything about it is so great. And the stuff they do to adapt for the film itself is so well done, especially like his her memories and her fantasies even. Everything is so
the journal
great
drawings,
and so the journal, everything is so beautiful and so well constructed. I think this was John Cameron Mitchell's first fucking movie too. Like, it's crazy to me. This would be one of someone's first movie. I could not say nicer. I could not say enough nice things about it. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, it's not even just I point the camera at the stage show that's already popular.
Right.
Again, this gets back to what I was saying with 12 Angry Men is I resent people who just make a film based on other mediums and they don't try to make it as cinematic as possible.
Right.
I think the use of visuals in this movie is breathtaking because what this movie does really well is it melds all of these realities, right? So there's the sad, harsh reality of trying to perform for a bunch of, giant Midwestern old people who don't care at a buffet, right?
Wait, it's a seafood place called, is it Bilgewater's?
Yeah, right?
I fucking love that
you're
name.
At the Bilgewater's.
Bilgewater's.
Yeah, and you're just belting it out for like 8 olds that don't care, right? They're like, God, I just am here for the B's and G's. And now I've got, Hedwig and the Angry A's. Like, what's happening? And so they have no interest in it, right? So you take those sad realities. We only see Hedwig in these, really kind of tragic performative moments for how amazingly talented it is, right? Yeah. But then you start blending the journals, the drawings, the narrations, Hedwig interchanging with his younger self, right? So we see the modern character that Hedwig has crafted himself into, taking the place of young Hansel. So this leaping back and forth of all these things so seamlessly to the sound of the film, right, and the songs. What it does is he uses all these visual tools to crash all of these realities into one kind of primordial ooze that is just pure emotion.
Yes, I think that's the thing that this movie does, and this is another reason I love this, because I agree. I think this month is amazing.
Yes.
We picked amazing movies, but like, it's another reason I fucking love just like movies about music, particularly, is like music is so subjective. Like, you can sit there and talk, like, there are bands that no one will ever like that I think are wonderful. And I think that's like the thing that's so important about music is it expresses something that you can't do in movies. You can't do with, I guess you can probably do it in plays because you have musicals, but like singing and performing is such a naked art. And it's really fascinating when you watch someone who's been through as much as Hedwig perform. And John Cameron Mitchell puts in this performance that's just so real.
I mean, for the fucking ages.
It shouldn't. This is like in any other context, any other actor doing this part in this particular movie rings so false. Like, I cannot tell you how, like, when watching this movie, be like, I feel like any other actor, if you're not on stage, doesn't understand how to do this, and like comes off just over the top drag queen, doesn't understand how to do it properly, like makes this a joke. It feels so real and tragic. There's nothing humorous about the music. I mean, I should be laughing during the song where she describes the sex change operation. The Angry Inch song should be hilarious. I'm almost crying, honestly. Like, it's such a sad song, and it's so fucking powerful. It's such a great. That's the power of Hedwig, man. It's the power of this movie.
Well, what I think is Hedwig is one of those movies, and this performance especially, it's one of those where this feels like and it's so funny to say for the character Hedwig, who somewhat the whole movie is him grappling with who he or she is, right?
Right.
I was telling you, this is kind of like one of those, is he transgender? Is he a drag queen? Does he identify male, female? Like, it's just this kind of moving target. Hedwig is trying to decide who and what he wants to be from the ashes of this tragic origin, right? So for a character who doesn't even know who they are, we, the audience, know exactly who he is. His soul and his heart is so fucking exposed that it's one of those performances that just feels like that's a real person that exists in this world.
Yes,
even though, as you said,
absolutely.
it's this kind of over-the-top cartoonish person at times, but it feels so fucking real, right?
Yeah.
And the Angry Inch song is a beautiful example of this screaming in the face of a world that leaves you behind. Because while you're saying you're sad, and it is sad, it's tragic to think about what happened, right? That, you know, when his mom and Luther are like, if you want to cut ties, you got to leave something behind. And his mom agrees, and they do that on this doctor, and his mom's there taking a It's like a horrific moment, right? And you just cut into this fucking rage. And there's that couple right in front of them that are like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. And they just keep performing like they're in the biggest stadium full of 100,000 fans. And they're just screaming into the void. And, you know, the guy stands up and screams at them and elicits a reaction. And so I was like, fuck yeah, man. That's what I thought watching. I was like, fuck yes. Like, the lyrics are brilliant. They're tongue-in-cheek funny. It's awesome. But I was just like, fuck. We can all relate to that moment of, and that's what music does differently, right? Because it's hard to keep someone emotionally engaged for the length of a feature film. It's hard to elicit that much personalized emotion from a painting or any other form of art, right?
Right.
Music is so fucking condensed, and it is the darkest magic we have as a species. Because I was trying to explain this because my son's starting to dabble into music. And you can just play a song, and you can watch his body physically alter and change and react, right?
Yeah.
And nothing else does that like music. And for Hedwig to weaponize music against this world that fucking wants to ignore him and hide him, and he's, no, fuck you. You cannot do this to me. And that moment when they freeze, right? And Hedwig kind of pauses as the fight's going on in slow motion. And he sees the reaction that his music and his words have put into the world.
Mm-hmm.
That got me, man. That was chills. I thought that was just fucking perfection.
It's a great, I mean, that scene is so, I fucking love that scene so
You know
much,
what
man.
scene really did it for me, though? I'll let you go on this, but I Pull the Wig Down Off the Shelf song.
Yeah.
That's the movie.
Oh, yeah.
That's the movie in microcosm, right?
That's like that's like in the musical world, that is the fucking note to go out on right there. To like your intermission. Like that's why people want to come back.
Yeah.
Cuz like I always like when I've seen musicals, when I've done musicals and that kind of thing, like the first act for me is always more entertaining than the second, because the second one is always like pretty much where the plot has to happen. The first one like gears you up and you get to sing all the more fun songs. Hedwig draws me back and I have to see the rest of it. Like after the fucking after the pulling the wig down song, like Pull the Wig Down song, it's, I gotta know, man. Because also we still haven't addressed any of the like exterior things that are going on, especially with like Michael Pitt's character, Tommy Gnosis. So like there's a whole other world we don't necessarily know about yet. All we've gotten through right now is we've gotten to the point where we understand where Hedwig is coming from and why she's doing what she's doing. And that, I think, is like, it's mind-blowing to me, man. Like, that part is particularly mind-blowing to me. Is like, that's as far as we get in this movie from the top, and I'm enthralled the entire time. But I want to talk about, there's the beat in that fight scene when she jumps. Mm-hmm. And she has that floating moment. I grabbed onto that, man. I don't know what it is. Like, I can't tell if, like, is it a dream sequence itself or what's going on?
I think that is the moment that is kind of illustrating, because this is where we soar. And again, this is kind of crashing all the reality. So this plays as almost theater of the mind for most of the movie, right?
Okay.
And so I think that's the moment when we slow down and see the reaction of the fighting to the Angry Inch song.
Right.
And somewhat flies and floats and narrates us into sad and broken on the couch. Luther is leaving with someone else, right? And we know a little bit about Luther, that there was something going on, right? Some kind of affair. There was a marriage talk, come with me, botched sex change. Like, it seems dark. And essentially, Hedwig finds himself just left in this trailer. And the moment I liked is it starts as this very soft and quiet, this broken person song. Like, how much more can I take? And that line that just captures the essence of music and punk rock in this movie, which is, I put on some makeup, I put the 8-track on, and I put the wig back on my head. I think we can all relate to that. That feeling of like, fuck, how much more do I have to take? But then you'll hear that song or see that show or hug your kid, whatever it is that gives you that fucking power. What's the wig that you put back on, right? And the wig becomes this brave face, right? That's how my mom used to say it, right?
Right.
Put your brave face on and don't let them, see you cry, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Well, Hedwig's just happens to be this wig, right? And even in the song, we see him trying on multiple wigs, right? Almost like Luther gave him a wig that didn't seem right? I'm Miss Beehive Midwest.
Right.
In that moment, when he sees the one wig and it's and it's coming down like the fucking Excalibur, right? And he's like, now I'm Miss Farrah Fawcett. And then he ends on, now I'm Miss Punk Rock Queen. And it was like, yes, that is the song. Because that song, right? That's the crutch. If you watch that beat and you're not vibing with the movie, you will not partake in what's happening. Right. Which is, this is a person who refuses to let the world bury them.
Right.
And so I will take these hardships and whatnot and craft. And even the opening of the trailer park becoming the stage.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I love that.
Just singing this giant hair metal kind of music video look amongst this trailer park. It's the power, right? And that's what I love, right? Because there's a scene that I latched onto a lot more this time. Because I had somewhat spaced that the narrative is him ghosting, or I guess not ghosting, but mirroring Tommy Gnosis's tour, right?
Well, they're following Tommy. It's like a spite tour.
Yes, and that had kind of drifted to the back of my mind. But the scene when they're at the men's festival,
Menzies Fair,
yeah, and the way Hedwig sees the one person and just okay, sits down and says, "Come up here," and they even telling one person his truth or her truth in that story. Right? And the fact that the band never questions any of this. The band is fully in. It's just a fucking beautiful sentiment, right? That having anyone hear you is worth it. Because by the end of the movie, Hedwig's a pretty complicated character, right? You could even say Hedwig's an abuser by the end of this movie, right?
A little bit, yeah.
That his pain has turned her abusive. So I think these moments of bonding us so close to the character make it easier for us to honestly assess the character by the end of the film, which gives it that extra layer of honesty.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I mean, I think honesty is a key word for this entire movie. Like, there's nothing more honest than, and again,
which is weird because as the realities crash around, don't you get the sense that maybe Hedwig is not an absolutely honest narrator?
I think that there's a lot of embellishment.
Creative license.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because they always say everyone's the hero of their own story, but Hedwig, for a majority of the origin, is the victim.
Yeah.
So when she does put the wig on, that is when she becomes a hero. And what's interesting is, she transitions to more this, like, kind of, honestly, sort of abuser, like, manipulator role, like, when they
not sort of. When Hedwig rips that passport up.
There's that, too.
That's hard to watch, because at that point, we're rooting for Hedwig. We love Hedwig. We feel emotionally hurt for Hedwig. And seeing Hedwig turn that pain into a cudgel against someone else is fucking hard to see.
It's an interesting thing. Like, she's technically an unreliable narrator, I guess, by like standard definition. But for me, the one thing that is always true is the songs. And I think that's a really important thing about, that's the thing I always loved about like the Spite tour vibe is like, so she's touring to spite Tommy Gnosis, who's much more famous, who's also stolen some of her songs. They're spite touring, but those songs, which are in the context of when we see Hedwig perform, they're supposed to tell the truth about Hedwig, also tell the truth about Tommy in a lot of ways. When you realize that he's also performing these songs, like everything about the songs is truth. It's the narration that is, like you said, unreliable. It's the music, though, that tells the truth of the whole story. And I think that's a really important thing, because as music's subjective, and as, you know, listening to lyrics and reading lyrics, like you might glean something that I don't, or I might glean something that you don't. That is like the beauty of music itself. It's the whole point of a tastemaker, and the whole point of having taste and certain taste to begin with. So for me, it's fascinating to watch two characters tell the same story, honestly, with the same songs, knowing full well that they're not neither are necessarily lying. Neither are necessarily reappropriating music in a way that would make them false. They're simply telling their truths.
Yeah, and it's weird because they're using this abstract, you know, language to tell their stories, right? So
Absolutely.
Tommy and Hedwig are both creations in a way.
Totally.
Right? And in the songs, there's that great, not to jump all the way to the endings, we got a lot to unpack there. But at the end, when Tommy and now Hansel again, I guess, are looking face to face, dressed as each other, and he's singing Hedwig's song as we've seen it, and Hedwig is crying. It reminded me very much, I remember seeing the movie Coco, right? And just being crushed by how beautiful that movie was, right? But someone pointed out later, and I can't believe it had slipped my mind, that Why Remember Me is such a beautiful song and one of the best movie songs ever, is because it illustrates that double-edged sword of the rock star mythology, right? Which is when Coco's dad sings it to her, he's asking her, right? It's her song, right?
Yeah.
Please remember me, I love you. When, you know, Hector sings it, or whoever the fucking famous guy was, right?
Yeah.
When he sings it, he's begging people to remember him as the man who makes this song worthwhile. He's taking them out of it. So it's the exact same song with the exact same lyrics, with pretty similar performance, but absolutely polar opposite meanings.
Right.
And that was a really awesome illustration of how that works, like you're saying, right? To where they can both be saying the same thing and be liars and honest at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, the circumstances by which, I think it's Ernesto. The circumstances by which...
That's right. Ernesto de la Cruz.
Ernesto de la Cruz. The circumstances by which Ernesto de la Cruz came across the song versus like how Tommy and Hedwig might have written their songs is obviously different and certainly less complicated.
You could say that Tommy emotionally poisoned Hedwig.
All right, maybe it's not nearly as different as I thought. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that's most telling about the movie. And I think that's the thing that I love about this kind of movie is because a lot of the time when you translate musicals from the stage to film, like a lot gets lost. And I think that's something that's really visceral about performance. And people have tried a lot, like the Les Mis they did a few years ago with Hugh Jackman, like they all sang live to camera and that kind of thing. And there is something that gets lost, but I do think there's something that lies in the throat of punk rock. Like, to me, that is, I think, the most important thing about the whole movie is that the reason Hedwig works as a movie and as a play equally so is because this music is punk, or this music feels like it's from the gutters. Like, I feel like I'm sitting there live watching it. I feel like I'm seeing a band live doing this. Like, it's a really important emotion and a really important vibe to put out. And I think that's what gives such emotional honesty to all of the movie is these performances. And I keep going back to this, but it's just so important to, like, the reason Hedwig works is because it feels live. Everything about it feels real. Even though it's a movie, it feels live, and I feel like I'm living that moment. I feel like I'm getting sweated on, man. That's a really important thing, especially in the fucking Bilgewater seafood buffet, punk rock clubs, whatever you want to call it, man. That is the spirit of punk. That is the spirit of punk rock. That's the spirit of like DIY music. So,
which is weird because it plays like a fairy tale to me.
It does. Yeah. And I think that's the crazy thing is like, everything about it should seem, yes, like super false, to be honest with you. And nothing about it feels false. Even though Hedwig is, yes, an unreliable narrator, and she's
Right.
the hero, victim, abuser, manipulator of all her own stories, I still feel like I'm being told a true and honest thing. And I think that's a really vital part about this movie is even though Hedwig fucks up a lot, I still root for her at the end of the movie. Like, I'm still rooting for her the entire movie. And
yeah. Well, I think that's an important thing because I think a lot of movies do this kind of white knight thing where our leading person is just a hero, like a good person doing great things.
Right.
I think it's important to show that, you know, Hedwig was traumatized and his, you know, his partner who he makes dress like Bret Michaels, you know, like that's him passing on some of the abuse, right? That he's not, you know, she's taking it out on others and it's not this perfect, you know, this just perfect heroine, right? And again, it's people our age will remember the wars, right? It's one of my least favorite conversations, right? Like, is it a horror movie, right? But we used to do that. Is it punk rock? Because we were around when Green Day came and kind of shifted the axiom, right?
Everyone has to have the sellout conversation.
Yeah, because we had Dookie, and you're like, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden, you would see these older dudes at like the record stores. Fuck you, that's not real punk. You don't know about real punk.
All the time.
And, you know, it's just like, I don't know if punk's a genre. I always thought a punk is, if you're more worried about speaking truth to power than, you know, making these operatic Rush-like compositions, right? If it's about energy and saying fuck you to people that need to hear that, that's punk. So I don't know what Hedwig is. All I know is that Hedwig embodies that with, I think they say in Sing Street, right? What kind of tyranny could stand up to that? And they say it about Duran Duran. But I think Hedwig is the prime example of that. Because this is something that I think me and you, right, as two straight white guys that grew up in the Midwest, there's a very homogenized effect of the place we grew up, right? In what we see and the way people react to things. And again, I love seeing Hedwig dropped in these, you know, kind of staples of what looks like the world I grew up in. And I think what is beautiful about the songs is as weird and idiosyncratic as they get, I think it's that I will be seen and I will be heard, right? And the ability to go into those places, you know, like you see it in the scene when Hedwig writes the song where she has all the Korean lady accompaniment.
Yeah.
And just sings it right to Michael Pitt. And the people in that room are really getting into it. You know, that's before like the full Queen Hedwig, right? Where it's like more in your face. It's just singing. And she's, you know, kind of toned down and this and that. But you see the starts of what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And just the ability of that music to say, fuck you, right in someone's face as they're sitting right there, who doesn't want you to be entering their homogenized world. I thought that was really cool. You know, and that's something I always liked in music. Because it can be, if you listen to some of the lyrics and this and that, you're like, what? That doesn't feel like my world. But that's what these things do. There's a universality to the emotion of it. And that is fucking punk as hell to me.
I agree. I think the sentiment of punk is much more important than the actual sound. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's either Dave Grohl or Billy Joe Armstrong said there's nothing more punk than three friends who can play three chords getting together and starting a band. That's like the essence of what all this is. And I mean, I think that's like,
what is that famous quote, which is, God, I know I've told you this before, but it was I won't let lack of talent stop me from saying what I need to say. Some punk band, that was kind of their famous thing is, you know, we have less talent than words we have to say or something like that. And that's the sentiment, right?
Right.
It's like, I just need you to look at me. And if I have to be loud and obnoxious to do that, that's where we're going.
Right. I mean, that's, again, this is the essence of the movie itself, too, is like, I have something for you to, like the reason you spite tour someone is because you have something to say to them. It might be the exact same thing they're saying to 50,000 people every night, but you have something to say to them, and it's important. And the important thing is that you're saying it. Like, it's not the matter of, I'm getting famous saying it. It's the matter of saying it to begin with. And I think that's a really impactful thing. And I think that's like when they go like flat broke at the end, right before like Tommy Gnosis shows up, which the limo thing is like probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. But like when he shows up, like she's obviously doing something not great, streetwalking cheetah life.
Hey, making money where you gots to make money.
Kept making that money.
I don't begrudge anyone making money.
No, yeah. Hey, look, do your thing. Like, I don't care. But when they get in the limo, it's the first time we see them together since like they kind of like we see in the past they broke up. By the way, that scene where we first are introduced to Michael Pitt in the bathtub might be one of my most favorite shot scenes in a movie. It is shocking.
Well, there are things where you just go, hold on, I have questions.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, so one, Michael Pitt is in some kind of communal area, and he's like, in this very large tub, I'm going to furiously masturbate and make all the splashing sounds with the door open. So
all
you're
the
like,
splashing with the door open.
Yeah, little Jesus boy, right? He's making choices, right? And then Hedwig walks by holding a baby. And then it's like, let me sit this baby down so I can fucking...
Let me sit this baby down and...
Yeah, get the little bishop in the turtleneck, as he says earlier in the film.
Yeah.
And it's a weird... Because it feels somewhat the opposite of the Luther meeting, right? Because Luther's is very much, you know, this handing the forbidden fruit of the Gummy bear, right?
Uh-huh.
And Hedwig comes back. This one feels more... It doesn't feel as predatory, right? This is like a, you know, oh, look at this man. I can help him out. Quick. Hopefully wipe the hand off before pick the baby back up.
God
and
willing.
then we're just in, right?
Knock on
Throws
wood
a
there.
Hedwig card in the tub, right?
Yes.
Which is, so the amount of decisions Hedwig had to process in such a short amount of time. It's a lot to take in, but then it culminates in that lovely singing as Michael Pitt's watching through the shrubbery. And it's just a stunning moment, right? So we got to walk through this Gnosis journey, because what really dawned on me this time, and I'm sure it was more obvious, I was just a little younger and didn't really stop to think about this more, is watching Hedwig crafting Tommy, right? So essentially Hedwig crafts who Tommy becomes.
Right.
Tommy desperately wants to be crafted, much like young Hedwig or young Hansel kind of did. It feels like a mirrored but not as sad version, right? And there was this fucking sadness in the idea of Hedwig saying, love me from the front, right? You know, the not kissing and this and that. There's a real fucking horror to that. There's like this body horror element of no matter what Michael Pitt says and does and puppy dogs and all they're building and working on, he cannot look Hedwig in the eye and honestly love her. And it's fucking sad, man. It was brutal. And then that kind of put this spin on it where you start wondering, was Hedwig creating Tommy Gnosis as the character that he wishes he had become instead of Hedwig? Sure. And so really more than Tommy loving her, he wanted his possible future self to love his new self or her new self. I mean, it's very fluid like that.
Well, no, and I always, to be honest with you, just based on the way Hansel looks before the botch and the way Tommy Gnosis looks moving forward through the film, like, and especially at that end scene, like when he's performing in Hedwig, who's like dragged herself, walks into this back of the stage, like they're mirror images. So I would totally agree. Like Hedwig's creating this version of, I guess, Hansel, or a version of Hansel, or her, just in general, a version of Hansel Hedwig that is free of pain, that is free of like that can forget all these terrible things that have happened, like can be completely remade, because Tommy's not damaged yet. Tommy's just, I don't know, Tommy.
Well, the ending is so complicated, right? It's almost like a Twin Peaks thing, like walking into the Black Lodge. So watching, because my thing is I have to question if everything that happened after the car crash is real. Because Tommy and...
Oh, I assume none of it's real.
Yeah, Tommy and Hedwig in the car, that makes sense. Tommy tries to do the, like, right? Like the little carrot, like, and Hedwig. And Hedwig's like, perfect. But then when they start fighting about the song, like, it's Osiris, there is no God, and oh wait, like, you fucked up. And Tommy just goes, I know. Like, that felt like a very real, intimate moment. And when the crash happens, right? Then we get, like, the spinning Batman, like the papers and the hotel lady. Tommy on the run, which feels like what Hedwig wanted. So there's a lot of this, even maybe in the alley, that's where we're not seeing everything as it. But it feels real to me up until the crash.
Yeah, I mean, I think
right?
that
Is this a moment, let me run this by you. Is this a moment where they have that moment of, you fucked up, I know. And no matter how that night ends, it's so unsatisfactory. Because the last shot of the movie is Hansel de-Hedwigged, walking butt naked through an alley. Is that the true chronological ending to that limo moment? Is that real, or is that just kind of a philosophical moment?
I gotta tell you, the post limo crash, for me, everything about it is philosophical, dream world type thing. I think they died completely.
Really? Okay.
I do. I think they died together, and this is like their house that Jack built, Journey into Night.
Yeah, I don't, because there's so much in the ending, right? Hedwig kind of now has obtained this fame, has this hip audience. It's like this super version of Hedwig, right? I think the wig is even changed, if I'm not mistaken. It's like little more.
It's like that dude from Poison.
Yeah, and so good. But there's some things that I want to kind of get into, right? Is Hedwig unveiling the inner Hansel? It felt strange to watch because Hedwig had become this armored persona, right? The drinking on the tires, the proselytizing, strange. Right? There was the sermon on the tires, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
And so for Hedwig to abandon that, to become whatever is left of Hansel, to see the partner, Bret Michaels, kind of unveil from the rent hoodie and the, stubble and the bandana to this, kind of ultra coarse singer look.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just shedding these identities, right? And I don't know if the film's telling us those identities were false or it's trying to show us a little of what's inside. Were they happier in that moment? Because at the end, when the partner tries to put the wig back on Hansel, he stops. It's yours now. You can be the singer. You can be your own Hedwig now, essentially, right? You can go. Because there's that great shot that's like the stylist from the start of the movie trying on Hedwig's wig, in the hotel room alone. And I don't know if it's saying that the Hedwig persona is not needed anymore. What did you make of some of this? There's a lot to unpack in the imagery.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
white guy, walk me through this complicated gender thing.
Well, if I have to mansplain the whole thing to you, I guess I will.
We're doing the best with what we got. That's all we can do, guys.
To me, like I said, I think they're dead. I think all of this is a fever dream, and I think everything.
So is this heaven or hell for Hedwig then, becoming Hansel again?
I think it's heaven, to be honest with you. I think that's an optimistic viewpoint because not a lot of this movie is optimism, but I like to think this movie ends on a happy note, in which that Hansel, like you said, Hedwig is the armor. Hansel doesn't need Hedwig anymore to be part of the world, because this is so hard to explain.
But the movie is based on us.
So abstract.
Yeah, falling in love with believing the absolute earnest reality of Hedwig.
Right.
Even as we talk about Hansel, he's almost one of her drawings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end, to deconstruct that and rip that away, even more than it just being a male thing, it felt like just exposing one's inner self, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think I know obviously like there's a larger gender conversation that I'm not smart enough to have, but
Indeed.
in my own dumb way, I would say that this movie, especially at the end, feels much more about the identity of somebody's inner self as it pertains to just how you feel about how you reflect the world. Like, to me, again, I don't know enough about gender politics, but I do know that people feel uncomfortable all the time around other people. I feel uncomfortable all the time around other people. So to strip yourself bare in front of someone during your big moment, like that to me is such an important piece in the movie. And then, yeah, Hansel walks in, sees Tommy Gnosis, but then he almost wakes up in the like pristine format version we were talking about in the scene where he rejects the wig, which is why I do think like this is now accepting that he doesn't need the armor anymore. So to speak.
Because even more than that, again, I don't think it's like this turning down of the Hedwig persona, but that last shot, right? Let's assume that's whether that's real or not.
Right.
Walking through that alley fully exposed, right? What someone would see right away, right? What most people are going to see is not just, oh, there's a naked man. There's a naked man with his dick chopped off, right? That's like the crude way most of our brains would react. Like, that's something that's not right. It's an in-between thing.
Right.
But what I think that moment is telling us is here is this person who is no longer hiding their trauma.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. You will
fucking see what has happened to me, and you will have to learn to live in a world with it because I will not hide it anymore.
That is a good way to put it.
And I don't think that Hedwig is, I think I described it as armor, which I think it is in a way, but I don't think it's armor meant to hide the trauma. That maybe through Hedwig is how we can get to that last shot, real or imagined. You know, that is the trauma has to be unfurled.
No,
right?
I don't
That's
think
the whole point of the music.
I don't think of it as armor to hide the trauma. I think it's armor to live your day. To like live through the day as Hedwig, you have to be tough. And there's a lot of
right.
Like
well,
that
it's
is what it
one
is.
thing to sing a song at a fucking Cracker Barrel. I have an angry inch. Right. It's another thing to walk exposed out into the world and let people see that. I think we all tell stories about our traumas and our pain that are curated, right? It's almost impossible to let someone see the exposed wound.
Right. Well, I think that's a really important thing about, like, you think about stories you tell, like specifically about stories you tell about yourself, things that have happened to you, harrowing experiences, the ones that you're willing to tell are rehearsed. They're storytelling moments. Like, you know how you're going to tell that story. I have them, you have them, everyone has them. You know how it's the same way people describe like couples when they tell how they met. It's a rehearsed gag. Like, that's part of it. What's really, really important about that ending shot is this is the first part of the movie, the first part of Hedwig's story that is not rehearsed. Like, everything we've seen to that point, while might be honest, is a rehearsed storytelling moment. Like, you know the beats, you know what you have to hit, you know what's going to get the crowd going, you know what's going to get your people moving. It's when you're walking naked through an alley by yourself out into the world knowing full well that you have to now just bare yourself. That's not a rehearsed moment. That is pure improv, so to speak. And I think that's a really important part about what the journey for Hansel Hedwig is that coming to grips with being, not necessarily being okay with your trauma, but coming to grips with, like you said, telling the world, like, this is my experience. You will have to live with it. I don't really know what to tell you otherwise. Like, being okay with telling the world to get out of your way, I think is the thing that's really important. Not screaming at them, but telling them to get out of your way. Hedwig would scream, and that is okay too. But to be okay enough to tell the world simply, like, I'm moving forward here. That's a really important moment, I think. And that's why I think the ending it's why the ending hits so fucking well. So well. And that's why I think that last shot too is just magic, man.
Yeah, and it's a really quiet, somber way. Again, we're looking at the back, not the front.
Right.
We're loving Hedwig from behind in a way in that shot, kind of like Michael Pitt was. It's just visually beautiful the way it wraps up. And I think that's the thing, is that the more you start thinking about the movie, this kind of forbidden gummy fruit Garden of Eden thing, right? What Hansel leaves behind in Germany is not 5 inches, it's Hansel.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
And brought to the States to be what Luther is designing him to be, what his mother tells him he should be. Mm-hmm. And then just starts crafting a narrative that she desires, right?
Yes.
I'll just put my wig on and face this fucking thing down. And I think that's what I'll remember, right? Those moments, because there's that great little beat when Michael Pitt and Hedwig are, it's this romantic, there's laundry flowing. It's like a Princess Bride shot.
Such a good scene, yeah.
And then Tommy Gnosis puts his hand down the front of Hedwig's pants and is, what's that? Is if there's any fucking possibility that is something that would completely shock him, right?
Right.
And I think what we're led to believe is not that Tommy wouldn't have known, but that physical reality is so startling and off-putting to him that he'll just run away and steal what he's got, and that's good enough. And that's what, that last shot summons back to is Hedwig Hansel as kind of this Tommy Gnosis character apologizing to his partner for the trauma he's inflicted and walking out, exposing his inner truth. It's an actually pretty kind of quiet and poignant ending to
Very
a really loud, chaotic, you will fucking, because it starts off as like, you will fucking eat this truth, every fucking angry inch of it. And at the end, it's like, hey, whether you want to or not, I'm walking into the world, and just walks the fuck away from us, the audience, into the dark. I thought that was awesome.
It's the end of the song, man. It's how you end. It's a great way to end a song.
Yeah. What did you make of the band just kind of existing, just being fully in, no character? They're just there to support and rock out.
I mean, for me, that's what I hate to put it this way, but like when you have a charismatic frontman like that, to me, that's like that is the part that's true to Hedwig, in my opinion. Like,
yeah.
We're never going to be able to know. We're never going to know what everyone else in the band's up to. Like, they don't give a shit. Like, literally, there's a guy who has a kid in every non-band scene, like, where they're not playing. He has a kid, and I'm like, where does the kid go when they play?
Oh, my God. I never put that together. That couldn't have been the jerking off kid or the jerking off prop kid because they weren't a band yet.
No. Like,
or no, they were rocking out when Hedwig put the wig on. So, I don't know. But I think what it's kind of funny. It plays like one of those Greek courses, right? To just drop in and
very much so.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
That's it. I mean, I like the band. Like the backing band is great because, again, it's just this weird facet of Hedwig's personality almost, and all they do is sort of like, I guess, presume to look weird because it's clearly Hedwig's boyfriend or lover is clearly a woman wearing. Which I still trying to kind of figure out what the deal is there.
Well, we never learn from the partner if that's the identity the partner wants or if that's what Hedwig forces. I think the ending is kind of hinting at that is, and it's weird because that persona, the Bret Michaels versus the, weird Robert Smith, kind of like new metal Robert Smith thing that Tommy Gnosis is, that maybe that is something Hedwig foisted upon his partner because it's like
that would make sense too.
This butch image, the opposite of Tommy Gnosis.
But I think that goes even more to the point like Hedwig's band just existing is what is almost the point of them. Like there's a world where you could just say the whole band exists in her head. Like if she's playing Bilge Waters, maybe she's just playing with a jukebox for all I know. Like
see, I take them as a thing.
that is a level of, but that's a level of unreliability I'm willing to entertain. Like, I agree. I think the band is obviously there. Otherwise, that would just be stupid. And like, really, like, kind of a terrible catch-all.
Well, they act as like, this funny anchor, right? They're almost like us, where it's like there are just these dudes that are 100% accepting the truth and reality of what's happening, and they kind of become this weird, important anchor to the movie. That even though they pop up in these absurd scenes, like the trailer park, becoming the stage, they never address it and never act like anything that's happening is strange, right? And so I think that becomes like this kind of audience touchstone. Yeah, I thought that was cool because I wonder if there was any like, hey, maybe these guys should have a song. Maybe these guys should let their voices be heard.
I don't know.
You never know.
Stevie B, what do you think?
If anyone would know, the fucking Stevie Bs would know. Before we get out, what was your favorite jam?
Angry Inch, man. That is a fucking banger.
That's a fucking banger. I'm gonna go with pull the wig down from the shelf because I think that one just
also
is that awesome, beautiful build, but it so perfectly captures what I love about this flick, man.
You know what's interesting? That song reminded me a lot of you're gonna laugh. It had the vibe of Paradise by the Dashboard Light almost.
Don't think that the angry loaf. Yeah.
I got heavy loaf vibes. It was good. I was just.
Why do you think I chose it number one? Anything that has essence of loaf is definitely on my list.
Just wafting those loaf notes over there.
And that's the thing, right? Is again, like, I'm just a fucking straight white guy who's had a pretty normal life and a pretty homogenized, like, place. But that mantra, right?
Same.
I put my makeup on. I put the music on. I'll put the wig on and face the world. I was like, dude, that's like my fucking new life creed. Like, on my dark days, I hope that that's what I'm saying. And that's the thing, the transportative element of, come get in someone's headspace that is not like you at all and feel comfortable, feel loved, feel warm, man. This, again, like Sing Street, this makes me want to fucking rage at the day. Like, there's so much fucking life to live out there. It fills you with that energy. There's so much life in this fucking movie. Like, I describe it as there are movies that crackle like Raiden, right? Where it's like there's just electricity pouring from the screen. This is one of them, man. Yep.
Definitely Lambert crackles. I feel
well, maybe not Lambert level, but pretty fucking close. That's it! Was he, though? Was he? He was definitely someone's uncle cosplaying Raiden. That's it! We're not doing Mortal Kombat. That's it for Hedwig and the Angry Inch. The Inch may be angry, but the podcast is happy that we finally covered this movie.
So excited.
All right, guys, please take a second, leave us a rating and review. Please take a second and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please take a second and join our Patreon community. Please take a second to email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Please take a second to find us on your socials. But more than anything, thank you guys so much for spending time with us. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Dandino.